I'd like to introduce the principal of Cleveland High School, JoAnn Wadkins. We thank Principal Wadkins once again, her and her team, for their service to our children, and appreciate her taking the time to come out and meet with us tonight. Don't forget, write your questions in the chat if you want us to ask them. Okay. Principal Wadkins.
As always, I'm so excited to be here to be able to speak with parents and tell you a little bit about what's going on at Cleveland High School. I did send out a newsletter on Tuesday that has a mistake that I'll correct here. And I said, that's what I get for writing some of these when I'm tired. So we are doing parent-teacher conferences again this year. It's not the 21st and 22nd because we're not going to do it on a Sunday. It is. It's the 22nd and 23rd, but as I indicated in my newsletter, there'll be follow-up communications from Elena Langdahl, one of our vice principals who's overseeing the event this year. The event will be entirely virtual as it was last year. We'll be using the same software that we use called My Conference Time, and you'll be able to schedule a time with your students, teachers. This actually offers a lot of flexibility for parents and for teachers, and still with our COVID-19 protocols, the district felt this was the safest way to go for our parent-teacher conferences. So please be on the lookout for links for how to sign up for conferences with the teachers. That'll be happening in about a month from now. And I'm sure our teachers will look forward to talk with you about your student as we will have just soon have finished our first quarter. So speaking of the first quarter, that's coming up. Those are some substantive feedback that your students will get on a grade report. Always feel free to reach out to teachers and talk to your students about how they're feeling in their classes and what things that they need to be working on. And one of the ways that they can access their teachers is by using Flex. So Flex is a period of time, and we had a Flex period today, where teachers are available in their classrooms for students to go and see them to get help with work, just to have a place to work, maybe to make up a quiz or ask about an assignment. And so Flex is a really great way for your students to access the teachers in a way that's outside of the classroom setting, and teachers and students are free to, during that period, to move and go and see how many ever teachers that they want to see during that period. And it's about an hour long, so it's a substantive period of time. So I really would encourage you to talk to your students about how they're using Flex and who are they going to see during Flex and how they're getting their work done. I had one student today, he was in the cafeteria, actually wanted me to fire most of the teachers for giving homework. I'm not doing that, obviously. But that is an opportunity for students to do homework, and that student has to write 3 paragraphs about corn and its impact on culture for Ms. Hardy's class. So, which I don't think is a bad assignment. So all I'm saying is that we have this built into our schedule, and if you're using the Trivery app or our website to check our schedule, those days are indicated by an A Flex and a B Flex, and we'll have another Flex tomorrow. The other thing that I shared, and just to make people aware, but things went really smoothly at our soccer game, which was our first event where we checked vaccination status of people coming to the stadium. So Cleveland students are not considered visitors when they're attending events at their own school. Cleveland students simply need to show their student ID or their student view to come into the event. However, anyone else, parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, friends, bring them all. But you need to bring your vaccination card, or you can show it to us on your phone, or we need to see evidence of a negative COVID-19 test that has been, results have come within 3 days of the event. Things went very smoothly Tuesday checking, and people thanked the school district for taking these measures. So you can expect any event that you attend at Cleveland High School to be prepared to share that vaccination status. That includes if you come on campus and you're going to be here with us more than 15 minutes. So maybe you have a meeting with a counselor that's going to take a little bit longer, or meetings with other staff members. So when you sign into the main office, you'll need to be prepared to show your vaccination status or status of a negative COVID-19 test, as the case may be. PPS also shared this out. This is in line with state mandates. And that's the practice that we'll be following. And as I've always said, you can feel free to reach out if you have questions or concerns, either through email. And those of you who have emailed me, my cell number, digital cell phone number is in my signature line, 971, got it memorized now, 413-2945. We do have we have football game tomorrow night, and then girls soccer on Friday, and it's a senior night. So I think the weather's not going to be faring that well for us, but bring rain gear and support our Warriors on the field. And we'll be gearing up for our first play in our beautiful auditorium. It'll be in November, and we'll get information out. It's a production of Antigone. I think it's going to be fabulous. I've been seeing some of the rehearsals, and Michael Payne is a wonderful theater director, and I'm really looking forward to enjoying that play in our theater. And I think that's the highlights. Again, we certainly enjoy working with the students. We have been lucky with the weather and still being able to go outside to have lunch. Though that may change. Well, I think it is going to change tomorrow, actually. But students are welcome to eat throughout the campus, and they're doing that. And we keep adult presence throughout the campus. And I remind you, anytime you have any concerns or questions, you can reach out to me or anyone on our admin team. And you'll also meet some people on our panel tonight that are great resources for your student and for our school as well. Thanks.
All right, Amy, you want to take it over?
I am happy to. Gosh, Principal Watkins, thank you. So folks who are watching on Zoom, I am literally facing the panel, which you see in your Zoom box is CHS PTA, and you just heard from Principal Watkins in the center of that. But she is clearly accompanied by an incredible team of experts at Cleveland High School, and we're so excited to hear more from them this evening. We've got about 45 minutes planned to talk about all things Cleveland High School, and just want to start with some brief introductions. Hi, everyone, and good evening. As I talk above my computer, I'm talking to my computer and saying hello. Behind the scenes here in room 106 in the basement of Cleveland High School, I'm very impressed with how Melissa Toledo, our PTA president, has not only brought us together in physical form safely, but with high-tech TV gear to make it look and feel like we're all together in community. And so this is just a really, thank you, Melissa, for that. And thank you all for making time to be here. For those of your friends who weren't able to make it tonight, we are recording this, and the hope is to share this online. Yeah.
Amy, I'm sorry, there's a really bad echo. Is there somebody in the room can turn off their sound?
Yes.
She's around, right? She's talking with someone.
Let's try that with, thank you. I'm going to do a mute and then a go. Is that better? Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
Thank you.
I had the echo too, so thank you, Kathy, for bringing that. Like I said, we're learning as we go. I will unmute after I ask the questions here. That's great. So hi, everyone. I'm Amy. I'm the parent of a senior at Cleveland High School and former PTA president, and for a couple of years now been part of talking about Cleveland 101 here in October. And Janet Morgan behind me is the organizer of these events for the last couple of years. So thank you, Janet, for helping bring together everyone this evening. We are going to go through just to hear from each one of the panelists who was able to join us this evening. And then we're going to just open it up for questions. I have a few questions to get things going, but you may have other questions as well. And so use the chat, ask the questions. I'll do my best to look there for your questions and bring them out into a conversation here so that our panelists who are not on Zoom can see and hear from all of you as well. And rest assured, there's several folks there and lots of smiling faces. So you'll get to see it later. So we're going to start first with our remote panelists, just because it's that way we can keep the technology moving in a synchronized fashion. And I want to welcome CHS Foundation President and Parent Christina Markelis. Christina, thanks for joining us this evening. If you could just do a quick 30-second who you are, your role within the Cleveland community, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Amy. I'm Christina Markoulis. I'm the CHS Foundation president. I recently had my son Nicholas graduate a few years ago, and I have a senior this year, Markella. This is I think it's my 9th year on the foundation. At Cleveland, I was recruited by another foundation member at Cleveland while I was on the Selwood Foundation. I am very tenured, and sadly, this is probably going to be my last year representing the foundation, but most of you are familiar with foundations coming from your grammar schools, et cetera. We raise funds to support teachers, teachers only. And so all the money that we raise helps support the programs at Cleveland. And we usually raise about $100,000 a year. And if you're interested in joining the foundation, go ahead and put your name in the chat, your email address. We're always looking for great volunteers. We're a fun group. Right now we are meeting virtually, and we meet once a month. And with that, Amy, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Christina, that's awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. And for those panelists who are here with me in the room, I told them, rest assured, I'll give you a cue when it's your turn to say hello. And we're going to start with introductions from Principal Wadkins and then move on down the line to introduce each of our panelists this evening. So stand by as I unmute you. Oh, that might be you, Principal Melissa. If you can unmute CHS PTA.
All right, I've got my cue. I'm going to hit my mark. So again, Principal Wadkins again, she, her. I'm happy to be here my 2nd year at Cleveland High School. I'm going to pass the mic to my left.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Golden. I am Cleveland's Instructional Specialist. Been here on and off for about 10 years. My role essentially is to support teachers in curriculum and assessment. I work specifically with the 9th grade academies, and that's when we're talking about some questions that can come up, I can certainly address some issues there. Thanks so much for having us here. Looking forward to hearing your questions and seeing what we can answer for you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Heidi Tolentino, and this is my 18th year at Cleveland. My first 7 were as an English teacher, and the others have been as a counselor. So I'm here to answer questions about 9th grade, all the way through, anything you have about academies, because I've taught in the academy, and I've also been a counselor with the academies since I started counseling. So I'm happy to answer anything that you throw at me. Thanks again for being here.
I know. Hi, I'm Amanda Weber-Welch. I'm another of the counselors at Cleveland High School. This is my 4th year at Cleveland High School, and I've been in other Portland metro area high schools and elementary schools throughout the rest of my career. I am also the college counseling lead, and so can answer some questions about our transition program from high school to college and also careers. So welcome, and so nice to see you.
All the way back down the line. Hi, everybody. My name's Farida McMahon. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a junior at Cleveland High School this year. I sit on our executive council as Cleveland's district student council representative. And the past 2 years, I have also been involved in student council. My freshman year, I was freshman class president, and my sophomore year, I was sophomore class president. So I'm really excited to be here and answer you guys' questions tonight.
Hi, I'm Moxie Thompson. I am currently the student body co-president, and I use she, her pronouns. I am a senior at Cleveland this year. It's also my 4th year, so I'm pretty much as experienced as students get here. In my senior year, or in my sophomore year, I started membership in Care Leadership, which is a class that is a leadership class dedicated towards racial equity. And I've also done various work with student activism in the school.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to keep my Zoom box muted, but hopefully the microphone will pick it up. Again, this is a reminder, if you are watching on Zoom,
All right, I'm back here.
Please, just a reminder, if you have questions for this incredible panel, please feel free to use the chat and I will read them back out to panelists this evening. This is a great opportunity for open dialogue. Not so much? Audio okay? Great. We're shaking out the kinks, so to speak, right? It's kind of like the school year. You got to figure it out. Like coming back together in person, putting masks on, all these things. It's a new year, new experiences. Along that lines, I have a question just open-ended for the panelists. And this is, how's the school year going? What do you think is most important for families, especially those who are still new to Cleveland, and we're still in new territory when it comes to living with COVID, the pandemic, and procedures and all of that. What's it like at Cleveland right now?
All right, as a student in general, I would give this advice, but also as someone who is in school currently during the pandemic with these new measures, I would say that the most important thing for a new student to know is that self-advocacy is important. Like your teachers are there to support you, but you're not going to get 100% out of your high school experience until you learn how to advocate for yourself. So whenever I see someone that I think needs help, I'll try to help them, but it's much easier to know that if people speak up. So I think that is a life skill and it is an academic skill as well.
Awesome, thank you for that. Melissa, we could probably
It's
Sorry, no, it's me.
I'm using their mic. So keep them unmuted.
Oh, you're using.
Keep.
All right, I'm going to use the table mic.
And I'm going to sit
And
down.
let's keep it as a wide shot. Moxie, thank you for that. Byron, it looks like you might have something to add.
Yeah, something I would have to say. I started the IB this year, and for any of you student freshmen out there that are interested in starting that, I would definitely say, like, you want to make sure that you keep on top of your work. The structure that you have towards school starts early, and the more work that you put into creating that structure and making sure that you're making these deadlines in your freshman and sophomore years will translate better to your junior and senior years when you really need those skills. So I definitely recommend to stay on top of those deadlines, try to work on not procrastinating. I know that's difficult, definitely not a skill I've mastered, but I think that would be my biggest piece of advice for post-COVID school and even pre-COVID school. So,
Byron, I love that question, and I want to stay along that lines. For the counseling team here, how would you suggest families support that kind of motivation?
I would say to start, the most important thing to remember is that your kids have been in a COVID situation for over a year and a half. And that means that many of them have not been in a school building. So going back to the normal that we had before is impossible. And for many of them, just walking down the hallway and figuring out what to do, how do you open your locker, which we don't have. So now they're like, oh, no locker, what do I do? How do I get all my stuff around? What is A day, B day? What about flex? The schedule is changing all the time. Some of them are just happy to know where the bathrooms are on every level of the school. So really step back as parents. I know you're anxious if you're new parents, if you're freshman parents. I know that you're anxious about getting them off on the right foot. And sometimes that's just helping them talk through, how's it really going? How's your stress level? Have you reached out to anybody? If you're struggling, can I help with that? A lot of times freshmen give you the hand of do not help me. And we say, yes, it's great. They want to be on their own. They want to try things, but don't let the leash go too far. Because I think one thing that they don't understand is all of the different components of what's happening in a high school. So give them a little room, a little space, a little encouragement, but also know that they're going to need you to continue to support them and maybe help them do some of the things that they aren't great at yet. So that to me is some of the big supports, I think, for starting out the beginning of this year.
You made so many great points. Something that I'm thinking about is I think there is a tendency to have a desire to return to normal. And I think it's really, we have a really amazing opportunity to rebuild more intentionally the way that that we're approaching school and supporting each other. There's a lot that has happened for all of us over this time period. It is so awesome to be back in the building, to be seeing each other in real life and having conversations. It's way more fun to be a counselor in person than to be a counselor over the screen. And at the same time, it's really exhausting to be back in the building, projecting through a mask. Teachers are having that same experience projecting through a mask, and students. And so I think finding ways to be gentle, take some extra time to rest when your teen gets home from school, and check in about how it's going. I think while there has been some struggle, most of what I'm hearing from students really is kind of a relief to be back in school. Some of the anticipatory anxiety that students and adults had in coming back to school, we're beginning to move into kind of more comfortable territory that way. In terms of organization, and I think that was one of the questions that Amy just posed, finding some strategies that work for your particular teen to organize themselves, I think can be really helpful. So it might be figuring out what time of day is best to do things. Maybe coming up with a strategy of when work stops so that there's a way to take a break and to have some other things in their life. And also leaving an open door so that they can reach out for help if they need it, whether it's at home or connecting them with someone at school, because we have a lot of resources here. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm not sure if folks can hear me on the mic. How's the audio on that? Is it good? I'm going to just keep talking through the table mic. Thank you all for your reflections. I just want to welcome those who just joined. We are in the middle of our panel discussion talking about all things Cleveland High School 101. And I just want to remind you that if you have a question for our panelists this evening, please feel free to say it in the chat. And we've got not only the folks you see on the CHS Zoom box, but Christina Margulis with the CHS Foundation is here as well. I want to go towards one question around the freshman class. And I understand, John, you oversee the freshman academies. And if you could just give us briefly an overview of what are the academies, how are things going? And then maybe we can hear from the principal about the freshman class overall, size and perspective, just understanding that in context with the whole of the Cleveland community.
Sure, great. One of the significant features I think that Cleveland has is the decision that we made well over 15 years ago now to organize our ninth graders into academies. And what that means is that each ninth grader shares, they're in a group of about 80 to 90, and that group of 80 or 90 students share the same English, social studies, and science teacher. In addition to that, they have a counselor that is assigned to that one particular academy. If the student is receiving special education services, that case manager is also assigned to that community. So in theory, there are up to 5 sets of adult eyes on our students, supporting and working with them. And this matters in some pretty obvious ways. If a student is struggling in one class, but being really successful in another class, there's a conversation that can happen there. There are opportunities for counselors to really know how the students are doing across these 3 academic classes. So I think that the academies themselves have been proven to be very successful to work as a transition from middle school, where we know that there's a lot more wraparound support, to a larger high school where there are some changes in that kind of support. Overall, I think the academies have been very successful. I think that one of the things for you to think about as a parent is that you can reach out to one of those academy teachers, and that academy teacher can share with the other. So they share, they talk, they have a common planning period where they can meet and talk about students and plan and strategize. So I think that there are a lot of opportunities for that. JoAnn, did you want to add things about the larger sort of ninth grade?
Well, It is a large class. It's one of our larger classes. We did start the school year off with an enrollment in Synergy over 1,700, but we've settled down to a number around 1,630. But the freshman class is still well over 400. I think it's right, 437. 437. So they're so the freshman and the sophomore classes are two biggest classes that we have in the school right now. One thing that's exciting about the structure as well, it not only having that communication with the teachers among the three teachers, but they're also part of the work that they do, regardless of the subject area, they're working with the students about what is school, right? How to make sense of like progress reports and what do things look like on a transcript, or how do you best study for a test, or how do you access different supports in the school. And that will happen in a physics class. Just the other day, as I was walking around at the beginning of the school day, you know, talked to one of the freshman physics teachers and showing about just how they were going to start their day. It wasn't about physics. It was really just about, you know, it was about school. So I think that's really powerful because they're hearing that from their teachers, and they're getting those important skills that Byron was talking about that you need to develop, you know, right when you are starting school. The other piece that John didn't talk about, but it's really an exciting piece of that work, is our student success teams, SSTs. And this year we have a model where we have a group of teachers that have a release period to work specifically around interventions and looking at data for our 9th grade success. And then we have another group of teachers that's looking at how our sophomores are doing. And so we have two of these teams coming together. And Melissa was just indicating, I'm looking at the microphone, so the camera, how's it going? Gonna hit my mark, don't worry, people. And then the administrator overseeing our SSTs this year is Elena Longdahl.
There's one other thing I'd like to add, and then I'd love to hear from the students your experience in 9th grade academy, but you may also see on your student schedule a course called College and Career Exploration. Your students might refer to it as CCE. And it's paired with a health class, Health 1. And this is a class where your students are really getting some of that high school 101 that JoAnn was talking about. How do you take notes? How do you understand yourself as a learner? One of the projects that they do in that class is what's called a lifeboat, where they list all of the supports that are in place for students. They're individual. So this could be things at home, things at school, friends. The idea of this class is really to help build the foundation for high school success. We actually refer to the class more as a 9th grade success class because it's really about building the skills that they need for the rest of their high school careers. So I would love to hear, if you don't mind sharing, what your experiences were like, and maybe say who your academy teachers were, what academy you were in, if you remember.
Sure. So I am a junior now, so I guess I'm definitely the closest to being a freshman than anyone else here.
Thank you for reminding us how old we are down here. Thank you.
No, you're wise, not old.
Thank you.
So I was in Stumptown, so it was Miss Blattner. Oh wow, it was a long time from now. Levine, and then my science teacher was Griffith. And I actually loved my academies. I made a lot of friends, people that I'm still friends with today. And yes, of course, there was the black hole of COVID where it was kind of hard to make friends, but I really enjoyed like having that community my first year. And I'm a very anxious person. I always have been. So it was really great to have like a group of people to get comfortable with, people to walk from class to class to, and kind of just to feel like you're in a herd of other people who all don't really know what they're doing. Sometimes it's really nice to like feel like you have these shared experiences with other people. And I think especially now that we're back in this building and I still have those relationships, it just shows me how essential those classes were and like those people and that community was. And then in terms of that class, I do feel like freshman year is a really big development year. You're learning how to be a high schooler, you're learning the skills you need, you know, you're kind of adjusting to this ginormous school and all the things that go along with Cleveland. So I think it was really good to have those classes and have that class that was dedicated to learning those skills, understanding what your support was. And I definitely think a lot of times it's easy for kids to check out in classes like that, but I would definitely encourage your students, or if there's students in this Zoom meeting, to focus in classes like that and really try to apply yourself, because they're really useful in the long run, especially if you're doing a lot of extracurriculars or IB. Learning those skills is going to be really essential.
Moxie, let's make it brief, and then
Right.
just so we can keep, there's some questions in the chat I want to be sure to get to. Thank you.
All right, I'll just briefly say that I was actually in Sequoia Academy, which doesn't exist anymore.
Amanda is
my guest, so yeah.
It's a rarity, but I'm so glad that you made it.
Yeah, so the different story with Sequoia is, not to go into it super far, but we had some hiccups. It was smaller than normal, and we didn't actually have enough teachers for the first part of the year. And I would say that that compares to the experience of all freshmen this year in a unfamiliar situation. And my experience in Sequoia Academy was that I actually really bonded with all the people in my academy, and having a group of people that I knew and was really tight with across all my classes made it a lot easier to get through some of that confusion, which is confusion that goes with starting high school no matter what. But also in our unique situation, I think that that really made us bond. And I'm very close friends, like Byron said, with many of the people from my academy.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And thank you all for the reflection in freshman academies. We have a question from Kathy in the chat that I'm going to read out loud, and then invite whoever feels most called to answer to respond. This is really about the climate at Cleveland High School. Is there much bullying? Are there cliques? Is it a big thing? It's a big school with lots of students and quite a step up from middle school. So she's just wondering what the experience is for our ninth graders, because she's not hearing much at home.
Let's keep it down there with the kids, I think.
Yeah. My experience in freshman year was much, much better than my experience in middle school. I was immediately relieved. You know, obviously it was a little bit disorienting for me, but I was so much happier. Like, I remember being so much happier freshman year than I was during any of middle school. And I think that what you mentioned about the size of the school, I think that for me, that was a benefit and not a detriment. And the fact that there are so many people means that it's so much easier to find your group. And but on the same note, I don't think that they are really cliques. I think that, you know, obviously there's going to be some rude teenage behavior in any school, but in my experience, the groups that I'm part of are not exclusive to outsiders. Everyone wants to include people who like the same things that they do. So whether it's a sports team or robotics club or constitution team or any number of specialized classes, I think that there are a lot of unique things that you can do that I did not have access to in middle school, and that made me very happy.
I'd also say, like, friendships and finding those communities, it is what you make it. You have to put in that effort to go look for those people that share your interests and your passions. But once you find those people, I definitely find that everyone in Cleveland is very open to making new friends and having experiences with different people. So I would just say, like, I don't think it's a very cliquey school. I don't think there's very much bullying in my experience, but it's definitely like you have to put in the effort to go and find those people that you really match with.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
So I actually might be called to speak just one more thing on that, just because it's something that's coming up right now. I love what you both were saying about finding your people, and it can be really hard to find your people. And we've been making a really special outreach this year. We have as one of our school improvement goals to increase what we call belonging, how students are identifying that they're belonging. And one of the ways that we're doing that is making a real push on clubs this year. We have, and I'm working with student government and our special projects coordinator, our administration. We're going to have a total of 35 clubs that are going to meet over the course of this year. 20 of them are brand new. And I'm talking about like some really fun, interesting clubs. There's going to be a card playing magic club. There's going to be something about tying knots and doing tapestry. I don't know. They're going to be amazing. But here's why I'm mentioning this. We're going to be finalizing a sort of an opportunity for all students at Cleveland to sign up to receive some specific information about these clubs. Rather than just being passive, sort of looking at the clubs and you're going to find it, we're going to ask for the advisors and the student leaders of those clubs to actively invite by email students who expressed an interest in these clubs. So Look, please, coming out in all sorts of different ways. A survey that your students will have access to here and probably through the Trivery app to be able to express some interest in some clubs, because you got to find your people. And as you've heard from our students, there are lots of people to find here. So look for that coming soon.
Oh, I'm glad you added that on. Thank you. A couple technical questions. I'm going to assume this will start with the principal and then we can go from there. So the first is Principal Watkins. Any word on when the lockers will be available?
We put out a survey for students who wanted, we've already issued lockers. So a survey was put out for students to make a request that wanted lockers, and then the lockers were issued. I would say reach out to Danielle Coda, that's D, and then C like cat, OTA at pps.net. She's the vice principal that was in charge with getting the lockers assigned.
Awesome, thank you for that. And thank you, Janet, for putting the email in the chat for those to reference.
Thank you.
One other question around, we understand in Southeast Portland, this is happening, it's across the city. People are experiencing houselessness, and there are several camps near the school. Are there any updates on conditions, any awareness for families that we should be mindful of?
Well, what I'm going to say is that you can continue to report any issues with camps on the city's website. I believe I've sent out links before. You can feel free to email me if you want to know the particular contact for reporting any activity. Our staff out and about, if we see anything, we report. I did put in my newsletter about the story that was in both the Oregon Live and I think Coin picked it up about carjackings that have happened in the neighborhood, and they are continuing to happen. And so just for, and I know some of our drivers, our student drivers, are new drivers, just to be vigilant, especially if they're driving by themselves. Certainly not to roll down your windows and talk to anyone you don't know. From what we understand from the MO, and Vice Principal Murray and I actually talked to one of the victims of one of the carjackings. The people who are doing it seem very polite and actually well dressed, but we need to keep a lookout of that as well, because it is happening in our neighborhood.
Thank you for that. And again, we'll share the resources out and try to find those and put those out in the chat as well. All right, so this is a fun question. Homecoming, dances. Some high schools had a dance, some did not. Cleveland High School. Any word on if there will be a dance this year?
I don't have a crystal. If I had a crystal ball to look into the future, I would use it, but I don't have such a thing. We're following the safety protocols that PBS works with our health partners to decide those based on the metrics in the county. So we at this point in time, for instance, like a month ago, we would not be able to approve any field trips. Now we're able to have field trips. I can tell you that like a month ago, we weren't going to have indoor audiences. Now we're going to be able to have indoor audiences. So as the metrics change and the guidance changes, then we'll be able to report out whether or not we're going to be able to have a dance. But I can't say at this point in time, we're not planning any dances because of continued social distancing.
Awesome. Thank you for that update. If you wouldn't mind passing the microphone down so we see everyone's here, so they can at least hear me. And you don't have to do the mute game. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hopefully folks can hear me a little bit more. So I think there was a question in the chat just about representation from the BIPOC community. And I know that we had the pre-COVID and pre-pandemic, we had a very active parent equity committee. And I believe, Pedro, you're on the call here. And so I want to welcome you into the room and just check in with how school equity conversations are going and doing a representation that is looking at inclusive school dynamics and all of that. And just curious to know either if that's something that student leadership is talking about and or school leadership is talking about.
Yeah, so both Byron and I are in care leadership, which is a class that I was created, I believe, in 2016 to address this very issue, which is the issue of racial inequities in our school. I mean, the sad truth is that we live in a country with a history of white supremacy, so those are going to arise in every school. But I think that the Cleveland community is very passionate about addressing these issues, and me and Bryony are both very passionate about addressing these issues ourselves. And we this year have a lot of representation from care leadership in our student government. So we are working very hard to work on racial equity in student government and in the school this year.
Also, so I'm half Asian, half white, so I am part of that BIPOC community. And I would say for those students who identify with that label or fall into the BIPOC category, reach out to those clubs. We do have a Latinx club as well as BSU and an API club as well. And those communities are really good at harboring the community and the support that a lot of BIPOC students need. So I would definitely recommend for all of you out there and for parents who are wondering their students, those are the big care as well as those groups are the big groups that of student-led groups that work to promote equity and promote, BIPOC representation. So I would really recommend to encourage your students to join those clubs, and so that we can kind of create that power and that dynamic in Cleveland.
And if your students are interested, care leadership is not a class that can be taken freshman year, but at the end of the year, every year, we accept applications. And you can start your sophomore year.
And care leadership does a bunch of great projects. We work on Cleveland Constitution situations, we're doing murals, and we do a lot of projects that promote that equity. So we definitely recommend it for any student that's interested in that or wants to learn more about the racial equity and the equity work that we do here at Cleveland, at least student-led.
As Amy alluded, we do have a parent equity group, and that group is meeting. Sean Murray is leading our equity work here at Cleveland High School. Sean Murray is one of our vice principals. 2 or 3 years ago, we had a cadre of staff that attended a year-long certificate program in equity through the Center of Equity and Inclusion, and that group of staff forms the core equity team that is the staff equity team. And they work together to do the PD that we do with our staff that happens on a regular basis as part of our all staff equity work. And so we have we have liaison with the parent equity group. We do our equity PD here at Cleveland to include not only what it looks like in our classrooms, but down to our assessment practices and the pedagogy that we use and the materials that we use in the classroom. And then we'll be forming a student equity group. So that'll be like the 3 major groups that'll be interacting together around this work will be the parent equity group, the student equity group, and then our staff equity team.
And we also have a member on staff, his name is Yusuf Leary, and he's a restorative justice advocate here at Cleveland. So he's also a great resource that we've recently had to bring that restorative justice lens, and we've been definitely utilizing him in care. So.
Awesome, thank you. If you wouldn't mind just passing the mic down here one more time, just for the comfort of those listening at home, and hopefully folks can hear me. I'm talking over my computer, but on the screen to all of you. This is the beauty of technology. You all are here carefully sharing with us all kinds of things as it relates to student experience. And we've got about 15 more minutes, and there are a couple more questions coming in, but I want to just toss it to the family members, the parents who are in the audience this evening. When you think about what would you want to say to them this evening about, and we've talked a little bit about advice on keeping pace, on keeping a schedule, but is there anything else you're seeing that would be helpful for our families to know, especially for those at the further end of the table from me, that you might want to share with the group this evening?
So one of the things that I went into my academy, I'm the Y East counselor, and I talked to them just recently about how to make an appointment with me. And I think that's an important piece for students to know. So as counselors, we work not just around academics, we do social emotional work, We're supporting students around their mental health. Anything that they need around outside supports are things that we can help with. We can help families find resources as well. So just so you know, if you have a child that wants to make an appointment with their counselor, they can go to the Cleveland website, and under counselors and counseling, you will find, and it's right along the top, counselors, counseling, you'll find all of our links to our Calendly sites. And they can make an appointment with us according to when it works in their schedule. And then just pop into the counseling office during that time and meet with us about anything. And it's a broad range of things. We're also going to be going into Academies in the first 2 weeks of November to do something we call High School 101. And that's our High School 101 to talk about what do you need to know about high school. And for a lot of them, it's sort of like this at the end. But a lot of my seniors have told me when I've interviewed them for college letters of recommendation, I remember you coming in and I remember those things you were saying, like maybe you should think about this. And after that, I came and met with you, and that was really important. So know that as counselors, we can be available to students for things that they don't even know that they want to know. If they sometimes they just come in and say, I had a student come in and say, I don't even know what IB means. What is that? Can you help me with that? And so I met with her just to talk about IB. What does it mean? And we looked at what that could mean for her in her junior and senior year and how it works at Cleveland. So we're available to students to talk through those things during the day that maybe you don't even know about, and just encourage them. Hey, reach out to your counselor, help them make an appointment with us and sit down with us with questions that they have. So that's something that I'd encourage you to do if they haven't done that and your kids are asking stuff, or after we go through our High School 101, if they have more questions, it's a great time to meet with us.
She's not exaggerating. Our counseling staff is without a doubt the best counseling staff in the district. And I'm saying that not just because I mean, you'll say me otherwise, but I've worked at other schools and I've been in the district. These are folks who honestly do say and do exactly what Heidi is saying. You all commit yourselves way too many hours in this way, but you are always there for kids. So please use them as a resource. They are there and so valuable to your students. I'm sorry.
We paid him for that. Thank you, John.
That was a nice little entrance point. Heidi said really a lot of what I would have said. But one thing that I would love to make sure that students know is that we are really kind of like the touch point throughout a student's 4-year experience. So we're there in those freshman academy classes. We've all been in at least briefly so far. And then in the first 2 weeks of November, we'll be coming and doing a presentation. We're the people who help schedule classes and forecast and think about what are good fits. We're sort of like the central spoke when teachers have concerns, and we coordinate with those teachers to help support a student as well. And then we get to be, actually, we're literally there for everything. We're helping with college and career questions as students get a little bit older. And then we literally are part of graduation of handing out the diplomas. So it's a pretty cool job. It's a lot, it's definitely a lot of work. We have, over 300 students each. And at the same time, I think that's one of the things that's really unique. It's so fun to get to watch someone move from age 14 to 18 and discover more about themselves. Like when I'm sitting here at this table and see Moxie at the end of the table, having been a part of Sequoia and making up our team name of Sequoia, it's a super great opportunity. The counseling office is counselors. We also have special education specialists, and we have an amazing school social worker who is masterful at finding ways to access resources and supports for students. And it's really our aim that the counseling office is an area where if someone is struggling, if someone just needs a break from class, that they are able to step into that space, even just to sit in the lobby of our space. We have a fantastic secretary in our counseling office who works to make things really, really inviting. And we want students to know that if they are struggling or having a hard time, They don't need to leave school. Best that they come in and reset in our office.
Great perspective. Thank you. No one can hear me right now.
Don't slide it. Oh.
So you can repeat this question maybe to help folks who can hear. There's a question about percentage of those vaccinated in the school. And I'm not going to ask you for stats, but if you have an awareness of population of students that may be vaccinated, or is that even available? Someone was asking.
Every parent has the ability through ParentView to add a document that shows the vaccination status of your child. That can be very helpful for us. It's not required that you do that, but you're certainly able to do that. I don't have access to any statistics about the vaccination status of the student body. And that's what it is. I think we have sent out information and we're getting data uploaded to OHSU for students to participate in the COVID-19 screening testing. And that once the data gets to OHSU, it takes about 10 days to 2 weeks before they actually start sending the testing kits. So that's one other mitigation measure that we're taking here.
Did you want to add more? Do you want to interrupt you?
No, and it is part of just the whole mitigation efforts. You know, the county will recommend that the number one thing is to be vaccinated.
Thank you. And thanks for reminding us parents to get on ParentView and do that thing. We get busy. So we've got about 7 more minutes and not a lot of questions in the chat. I think what you're providing tonight is a good anchor point of perspective, and it's just nice to hear from folks in all parameters of the Cleveland community. Thank you. I know, Christina, we didn't get an opportunity to hear from you, so I just want to say, in reflecting on parent involvement and what it means to get involved in the Cleveland community, maybe there's a little bit you can share with the group on Zoom this evening, and then we can kick it back to those on the table if you have any added thoughts on community involvement.
Yeah, you kind of broke out, but just talking about parent involvement. Yeah, parent involvement is really critical at the high school level. It's not like when you're in grammar school where you're inside the classroom. Most of parent involvement is what we're doing right now, whether it's in person or Zoom, being able to support our students and staff at the high school. PTA is one way, Booster Club, Foundation, there's Weekend Warriors. There's a ton of different ways that parents can get involved and not feel like you're smothering your children at the school. So I recommend very, very highly to reach out to one of the groups and get involved. You don't have to be, you know, at every meeting, but if there's something out there that really appeals to you, go for it. And you'll get to know folks in the community. And that's really, it's really good for you as a parent to do that. So I highly recommend it. Reach out to one of us or any of us, and we'll be glad to help.
Awesome, Christina, thank you. We're going to toggle the microphones here, and I appreciate you sharing that. As someone who was reticent to get involved as a volunteer when my daughter was a freshman, and then I dove in sophomore and junior year. The water's fine, folks, and it actually feels really good as being involved as a family member and getting to know the school adults within the school and the culture overall within the school. I enjoyed my journey, and I encourage those, don't be shy. There's some incredible ways to get involved. So thank you for that. So we've got about 5 more minutes, and I'm going to invite our panelists, just any final thoughts, things the community should know. And we'll start Moxie with you and then walk on down the line.
Yeah, I just want to bring it back to self-advocacy. Yes, I know I mentioned that at the beginning, but since then we've talked about sort of racial equity and activism, and also just the structure of the way things are in the community and with COVID. I think that a lot of students have concerns about the way things are run, and I think that our administration is actually really receptive. There are petitions circulating within the student body right now about different things in the school, and I think that the administration is going to listen to those ideas. there are students here who will want to speak up for themselves. And I think that is a good thing for students to learn how to do. So.
I would just tell all the parents out there not to stress so much. I think a lot of times it's really hard to watch your kid kind of become more independent in school and take more responsibility. And it's really scary, I'm sure, to try to let go of them as they, get to this age. And I think that you've raised your kids well, they've come to this stage and they're ready to do something and they're ready to spread their wings and really enjoy being like an independent person and having that autonomy. So I tell you to take a breath, stay calm, and try to let them go as much as you can.
I'm going to snap that one. That was Yes, because the students here continue to amaze me every day, and that's in a very positive way. Sometimes I feel like I don't always have very positive things to share. Certainly, all of us as a community have been through a lot in the last 18 months, and we're continuing to work together, being together as a school community. And I actually want to piggyback on what Moxie is saying, and that is, my team is dedicated to having your student be successful at Cleveland High School in whatever way that looks for your student. I'm excited to hear from students and their ideas. The students are putting together a student forum. And so if there's any kind of lasting thoughts, is have your student and have you find maybe that one little place, that one little piece where you can become involved with our Cleveland community, because that's really the way that we can all support each other.
Mine is not countering at all what you said, but I do want to offer this, that if you're a parent of a ninth grader, ninth grade matters a great deal. The statistics and data is pretty clear that a student who is successful in ninth grade is successful, not just graduating from high school, but being successful in college. It matters a great deal. And one of the challenges is that students come from middle school where we tell them it matters, but it doesn't really, because they go on to the next grade. Students collect credits here in the ninth grade, and they have to earn credits in order to graduate. So ninth grade matters. And so without stepping on them too much at all, by any means, reminding them that when they are not quite where they might want to be at quarter time, which is going to come out November 5th, that's an opportunity to remind them that these grades and these credits that they're earning matter, and it will pay off. Students who are successful in the ninth grade are successful in high school and in college afterwards. So that's my my little final word.
I just want to end by saying that we know in the counseling office that a lot of our families have been impacted by COVID, and that a lot of our families are struggling. And if there are resources that you or those that you know need, please reach out to the counselor that's connected to your student. And we are happy to connect you with our social worker to help with resources that we know of. But we want you to know that we do have access to resources, and we will find them if we don't, or help you find them. So it's really something that we want to be helpful with the entire student. And so that means an involvement with the family as well. So please know that you're welcome to reach out to us. Email is the best for counselors, for our families to reach out and let us know if there are things that you need. And also know that another way that you can be connecting in at Cleveland is you'll be hearing about Cleveland Gives Back in the coming months. And that's where our in-school community and our larger community come together to begin to give resources to families in the community that are in need. And so you'll be hearing about that, and that is a great way for you to get connected in with what we're doing here. And Cleveland really does give back a huge amount to the community. So we would love you to be involved in that in whatever way you can.
I guess my final note, especially for families, is that we want families to feel a part of this community as well. And I recognize I'm the mom of actually a senior at Cleveland right now as well. And I recognize that when students are saying like, yes, we're looking for some independence, I think the work of being the adult for a teenager can be sort of tricky, right? To figure out when to connect in and when to give space. And I would encourage you as well to really seek community in this school. And you can find that through the PTA. You can find that by, it's a little trickier than when we were younger, and like parents, you would have a phone call where you would get that communication more directly. But I would really urge you to work to build some level of connection with your child's friends, families, right? And have a sense of just being able to look out for each other as well. So, because I think both can happen. You can really work to build independence for your child at the same time that you maintain some communication and connection as well.
Awesome, thank you for that. If you would mind. So for those just joining, I'm moderating, but using the table mic. So I'm talking over my computer. And I just want to thank all the panelists for making time not only to be here, but to be here in person in room 106 here at Cleveland High School. It's really, this is my first time being in community here in almost 2 years. So it feels good to me. And it's just nice to see you all in person. So, and I want to thank you all who were able to make time, and those who just joined us midstream. We did record tonight's conversation, and we're happy to share that as a resource online later. I realize we're wrapping up just a couple minutes earlier than expected, but the PTA board is planning to meet, and I would encourage you all to stay on and listen, because part of that is learning about what the community is talking about, and some good questions mentioned in the chat, other opportunities to be creative and be supportive of the Cleveland community overall, and the Parent-Teacher Association called PTA is a nice place for that. I want to thank our panelists again this evening, Principal JoAnn Wadkins, staff, Counselor Heidi Tolentino, Counselor Amanda Weber-Welch, CHS Foundation President Christina Marcolis, and parent Christina Marcolis. I skipped through that. Teacher and Instructional Specialist John Golden, and our student body leaders, Byrony and Moxie. Thank you. Lots of clapping and happiness on the Zoom box too. I know you are not able to see that, but there's folks who really appreciate hearing from all of you this evening, and many thanks for making time to be here and your commitment to the community. Melissa, as board president, take it from here. Thank you.